What is going on, Z-Bursters? It's your boy Z-Burst back from his hiatus, and he's here for one reason and one reason only. It's March Madness and predictions need to be made and upsets need to happen, and let's crown our 2019 national champion in college basketball. Let's start off with the #1 team, Duke. They take on North Carolina Central or North Dakota State, depending on how that game goes. And it doesn't matter who it is, Duke's going to the round of 32. Next up, 8 seed VCU, 9 seed UCF. Central Florida wins this game. They upset VCU. They will face Duke in the round of 32. Then it's the 5 versus the 12. History has it where 12 seeds tend to upset the 5 seed, even though in the past 5 years it's happened twice where all 5 seeds won. That doesn't matter though, because Mississippi State is going on to round of 32, and they will face the winner of the St. Louis versus Virginia Tech team. And that's #4 Virginia Tech being upset by #13 St. Louis. St. Louis will take on Mississippi State in the round of 32. Following that will be Maryland versus Belmont or Temple. #6 Maryland beats #11 Belmont or Temple. Moves on to round of 32. Then is LSU versus the Ivy League Yale team. And #3 LSU hands Yale a huge loss. I think this is going to be a gigantic margin, and LSU will take on the Terrapins in the round of 32. #7 Louisville goes up against #10 Minnesota, and Minnesota gets that upset and goes on to the round of 32, where they will take on #2 Michigan State, as Michigan State just completely blows out #15 Bradley. And that is it for the round of 64 in the East. Let's move down to the South, where #1 Virginia takes on Gardner-Webb, and history will not repeat itself for the Cavaliers. They will not lose a second straight year to a 16 seed. Virginia cruises past Gardner-Webb, where they will face the winner of #8 Ole Miss and #9 Oklahoma. Who's the winner of that game? The Rebels. Ole Miss will go on to defeat Oklahoma, and they will take on Virginia in the round of 32. Next up is Wisconsin versus the Ducks of Oregon. There's another 5-12 seed matchup. 12 seed wins. Oregon moves on to the round of 32. Following that game, Kansas State takes on UC Irvine. And Kansas State, one of the most threatening three-point shooting teams in the nation, go on to win that game and will face Oregon in a round of 32. Villanova, the reigning defending national champions, take on St. Mary's. It's a 6-11 matchup, and Villanova wins this game. And then you have Purdue versus Old Dominion. The Boilermakers failed to win in the first round as Old Dominion cruises on probably a 3-4-5 point game, and will take on the reigning defending national champions Villanova in the round of 32. Cincinnati, the Bearcats versus Iowa, 7-10. Bearcats win this game. Cincinnati goes on to round of 32, where they will face either #2 seed Tennessee or Colgate. And well, you probably picked this one too. Tennessee's gonna win this game. And that's it for the round of 64 in the South region. Let's move down a little bit to the west, to the Midwest, where #1 seed North Carolina takes on Iona. This game is a blowout. North Carolina wins by 25-26 points and moves on to the round of 32, where they take on the winner of the Utah State versus Washington game. This game, Utah State versus Washington, is probably the most intense 8 versus 9 matchup in this year's bracketology, in this year's bracket. And Washington upsets Utah State to take on North Carolina in the round of 32. #5 Auburn takes on #12 New Mexico State, and Auburn, the Tigers, move on. They advance. They're in the round of 32. #4 Kansas takes on #13 Northeastern. Northeastern won their conference championship. Congratulations to them. But they do not defeat the Jayhawks. Jayhawks will take on Auburn in the round of 32 in what should be a heavily contested game to watch. #6 Iowa State takes on #11 The Ohio State University. And the Ohio State University loses to Iowa State. And Iowa State moves on to the round of 32. Number 3, Houston takes on Georgia State, and Houston cruises past Georgia State to meet Iowa State in the round of 32. Number 7, Wofford, who went undefeated in the SoCon Conference, don't make it out of the round of 64. They lose, get upset by Seton Hall, where Seton Hall will take on either number 2, Kentucky, or number 15, Abilene Christian University. And it will be the Wildcats of Kentucky as they dominate, destroy, and send Abilene Christian packing home, as the Wildcats will win this game and meet Seton Hall. Round of 32. That is all for the round of 64 in the Midwest. Let's go a little bit more west to the West Division. The West region, whatever you want to call it. Number 1, Gonzaga will take on FDU or Prairie View, A&M. That game, well, Gonzaga wins. Enough said. Gonzaga moves on to the round of 32. Number 8, Syracuse, and number 9, Baylor. Number 8, Syracuse win this game. They will take on the Zags in the round of 32. Number 5, Marquette. Number 12, Murray State. Another 5-12 matchup. Murray State upsets Marquette, moves on to round of 32 to play either Florida State or Vermont. Florida State is one of the dark horses in March Madness. Florida State wins this game. Number 6, Buffalo take on either Arizona State or St. John's, and the Bulls of Buffalo, leading the way with C.J. Massenberg, will win this game and will face either Texas Tech or Northern Kentucky. And who's the winner of the Northern Kentucky-Texas Tech game? Number 3, Texas Tech. They will take on Buffalo in the round of 32. Number 7, Nevada take on number 10, Florida. And another upset as the Gators defeat Nevada and move on to round of 32, where they will face either number 2, Michigan, or number 15, Montana. And who is that going to be? The Wolverines of Michigan. Michigan defeat Montana, move on to round of 32. Now going back up to the East in the round of 32, which will be played on March 23rd and March 24th. Duke takes on UCF, and Duke moves on to the Sweet 16. Mississippi State takes on St. Louis. Mississippi State caught a break as they beat the easier St. Louis team, and Mississippi State will be seeing Duke in the Sweet 16. Maryland versus LSU. This game is an incredible game to watch because LSU gets upset, and who doesn't like an upset more than, I guess, anything in March Madness? That's what's called March Madness, you know? Maryland moves on to the Sweet 16, where they will take on either number 10, Minnesota, or number 2, Michigan State. It's number 2, Michigan State. Michigan State moves on. They will see Maryland in the Sweet 16. And going over to the South, Virginia versus Ole Miss. Virginia holds Ole Miss to under 70 points, and the Cavaliers move on to the Sweet 16. Next up is number 12, Oregon versus number 4, Kansas State. Oregon's Cinderella story gets shut down early as Kansas State defeat the Ducks to take on Virginia in the Sweet 16. Number 6, Villanova takes on number 14, Old Dominion, and the reigning defending national champions defeat Old Dominion and move on to the Sweet 16, where they will take on Tennessee as Tennessee defeats Cincinnati, and Tennessee is in the Sweet 16. And then you move down to the Midwest, where the Tar Heels of North Carolina take on their first hard opponent in the region, Washington. And North Carolina edges past Washington to move on to the Sweet 16, where they will take on the winner of the most important round of 32 matchup you will see this year. Auburn Tigers versus Kansas Jayhawks. This game is going to be incredible, and Auburn is going to win and take on the Tar Heels in the Sweet 16. Next up is Iowa State versus Houston, and Houston wins this game. They move on to the Sweet 16. And then number 2, Kentucky takes on number 10, Seton Hall. And the Wildcats keep on rolling as they make their way to the Sweet 16. They will take on Houston. Moving on to the West. Number 1, Gonzaga is the first number 1 seed to be eliminated as the Syracuse Orange make their way to the Sweet 16, where they will take on ACC foe Florida State as Florida State defeats Murray State and they move on to the Sweet 16. Buffalo loses to Texas Tech in the round of 32 and Texas Tech moves on to the Sweet 16 to take on either Florida or Michigan. The Wolverines are rolling. They're feeling hot. They want to make their way to the championship game. They lost the championship last year. They have this motivation and they defeat Florida to make their way back to the Sweet 16. Which leads us to the Sweet 16, which will be played March 28th and March 29th. And in the East, Duke takes on Mississippi State. And here's where Duke crumbles and falls apart. Mississippi State plays stellar defense. Zion will foul out. And Mississippi State will be going to the Elite Eight, where they will take on Maryland or Michigan State. And it's going to be the Spartans of Michigan State. Michigan State edges past Maryland to make their way to the Elite Eight. And then you move on to the South, where Virginia and Kansas State duke it out. And Kansas State defeats Virginia. And now there are 3 number 1 seeds out in the Sweet 16. And Kansas State is in the Elite Eight. The next game, the reigning defending national champions Villanova and the Volunteers of Tennessee. And Tennessee ends the dream for Villanova as Villanova's hoping to go back-to-back, and they fail to do so as the Volunteers make their way to the Elite Eight. Moving our way down to the Midwest, you see North Carolina and Auburn. The Tar Heels are eliminated as the Auburn Tigers defeat North Carolina to cruise on to the Elite Eight, where they will see either Houston or Kentucky. And the answer to that question, who is going to be? It's Kentucky. The Wildcats are back in the Elite Eight, and they will be looking to thrive and maybe make a run for the national championship. However, first we have to get to the West, where Syracuse and Florida State do another round of ACC play, and Florida State is victorious and they move on to the Elite Eight. And then it's Texas Tech and Michigan. Michigan still thriving. They want their redemption. They saw North Carolina do it years ago, and they succeed as they defeat Texas Tech to move on to the Elite Eight. And now we have 8 teams left. Not a single number 1 overall is left. And let's see what happens. These games will be played March 30th and March 31st. And let's get down to business in the East. Mississippi State, Michigan State. Who wins? Michigan State. Michigan State is in the Final Four, where they will take on, in the West, switching up a little bit, either Florida State or Michigan. Who's it going to be? Michigan, the Wolverines, will take on their in-state foe, their rival, Michigan State versus Michigan in the Final Four. And then in the Elite Eight for the South is Kansas State versus Tennessee. Kansas State is a 4 seed, Tennessee is a 2 seed. You would think that means Tennessee is going to win this game. No. It's March Madness. Kansas State moves on to the Final Four, where they will either take on Auburn or Kentucky, the Tigers or the Wildcats. It's going to be the Tigers as Auburn defeats Kentucky and move on to the Final Four. Now you have Michigan State, Michigan, Kansas State, and Auburn. You have a 2 seed, a 2 seed, a 4 seed, and a 5 seed in the Final Four. And who's going to be in the national championship game? It's going to be Michigan and Kansas State, as Michigan defeats Michigan State, get their revenge on the Big Ten Conference Championship, as they are now in the national championship, and Kansas State defeats Auburn, and Kansas State will be taking on Michigan in the national championship game on April 8th. And who is the national champion going to be this year? Yeah, they got their redemption. The Michigan Wolverines will be your 2019 national champions for college basketball. I hope you guys have enjoyed this video, this prediction. Leave me down in the comments who you think the winner is going to be this year and how your bracket is shaping, and let me know if anybody gets even out of the round of 64 with a perfect bracket. I love you guys so much. Hope you guys have a great rest of your week, and I will see you guys next time. Peace.